Okay, there we go.
Great. Well, hi, nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too.
First of all, yeah. Uh, I'm just gonna jump into it because I'm excited about it, and I had this.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, really excited. I have had this issue in my foot, my leg, uh, buttocks, and lower back thing that been different sensations and pains for years actually, and I've been desperate. I've been going to all of the specialists and doing MR and X-ray and ultrasound and orthopedic and physiotherapist and you name it, the needles and the everything. And been really like, you know, frustrated, what's it, not grumbling, but ruminating about it, and
Yeah.
really like being completely drained and immersed with the thinking about the pain in my foot. And it's been years. And then Jamie actually recommended the John book. Once I asked him a question on one of his live chat about physical pain and the inside out understanding, and he just recommended that book. And I fortunately I bought it, I read it, and while I was reading it, I was kind of I woke up to the mind-body connection in a new way, and I could relate my pain differently. And all of a sudden, yeah, it was a quite a big difference. It gave me hope, which was the biggest thing, and it gave me back the power. I had felt powerless and hopeless for so long, and when it came to that era in my life, and I felt like that even because my mind was completely cluttered in just focusing on that, so I didn't have any energy and extra just like extra energy to work on building my brand and business and make videos and help other people or share this understanding or anything. Everything just boiled down there. you know um
And weirdly, right, what a gift.
what's that?
What a gift all of that is.
Oh yeah.
Like weirdly, but
Yeah.
I'm so thankful that my back went.
Yeah. Oh my God. Oh, and I want to hear you share a lot about it, just to wrap this the reason I wanted to talk to you, and kind of the story is that uh, that kind of gave me hope, and then I started to be able to not focus so much on the pain and create a lifestyle that I wanted, and do stuff and find happiness other places in life and be more normal. And still it was there, but it hasn't bothered me that much the last year that it did before. It's still there. So now again, I started researching and learning more about maybe picking up the research again and kind of looking at it from a new, more inspired, motivated feeling and angle. And what happened is it came to me an idea that what if I just sit here and I just calm down and wait and let awareness take over and notice what's happening, and noticing what's happening, also kind of observing the thoughts that are happening while the sensations are happening. So I did that, and I remembered some other insight that I had a while back, that Morten, you can talk to yourself. You don't have to be alone. You can actually physically, like literally talk loud to yourself. Because for me, that my dad used to do it a lot. I know my mom does it. I think it's like something that I had forgotten, that I can actually talk loud to myself, and that's the kind of therapy for me. I can have a
I love
conversation,
that.
like a
I
literal,
think
yeah.
I want to jump in there, right? Because
Uh,
I think that's incredibly powerful. Because here's what we forget: what's speaking is the self. That's what's speaking, right? What's speaking now is the same as what's speaking on the other side of this lens. Now, for somebody who's just hearing this, that might sound like, like
yeah.
what's this dude talking about? Okay, but it's the
Uh,
same thing. It's what we would call the true self. Or yeah, look at your breath change. How
mm,
cool, right?
mm,
Or oneness, or life, or God, or whatever, right? That's what's speaking. And so you're so right that that healing energy of the true self hearing itself and
mm.
resonating through the body is healing energy. It just is. It's when we, and this is difficult because I've got to use duality to explain it, right? But when we speak
Right.
to ourselves, how do you do that? When we speak to ourselves, we, inverted commas, reconnect with ourselves. And we never disconnect. Right? It just looks that way. We do, it's impossible.
Right.
You
Yeah.
can't do that.
Wow.
Like try disconnecting from yourself.
Mm.
You can't. No one can do that. But it seems like that because of this thought feeling thing. So that's beautiful what you said. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. You're bathing yourself in the healing of the true self.
Mm.
Wow.
Yeah, it was like that. It was a miracle, man. Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to go and sit outside in the sun now.
Yeah.
Like contemplate that for the next 6 years. That will do me. Like I've seen two things this morning. I watched sunbeams coming through the garden, and I was
Ooh.
almost late for our call actually because I'm just standing transfixed. I'm like, Dave, what are you doing? You're just standing looking at sunbeams, but it's like the most beautiful thing. It's like almost like I could have gone into the garden and slid down on them as it came through the trees or whatever. It's just crazy. And now we have that little bit of share there, and that's it. I'm done for this year. That's good. That's 2018.
Oh,
Funny.
and it really was a miracle, man. It
Yeah,
was
yeah, yeah, yeah.
my tiny little miracle that completely sent me back and gave me remembrance again, and I could the feeling of pain transformed into the feeling of healing,
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah, yes, yes.
there and then. It's incredible. And then I had to make the video, and then I thought about, and I talked about you and how you, in the Facebook post that I posted about John's book, and if anyone had any experience with it, there became a long very interesting conversation. And you said, the only thing that I remember from that conversation and that came to me yesterday when I had this experience was that you had said that you had learned something from the pain, or you wouldn't want to miss out on a learning experience. Can you please talk more about that?
Yeah, I think so. I'll try.
Yeah.
So in the summer of 2017, my back went. We'd been on holiday and we'd been walking, and I really hadn't enjoyed it. And I love walking so much, but I was so unfit, out of shape, that even walking like a few miles was becoming harder than it should be. I'm only 23, plus another 28 years. So it shouldn't be that hard. You know, I'm a lot less was it more in dog years? I can't remember. Anyway, so it's one of them. And so then I just mowing the lawn. I think I was picking leaves up or something, you know, early autumn. And suddenly my back started to hurt. And so I kind of finished what I was doing and whatever and went inside. But then, you know, like when you get the spasms, the muscles are gripping, that started. And then I'm like, oh man, this really hurts. And then I'm on the floor, like I can't go anywhere. And it's like, oh, this is really, really bad. And I could only move by crawling on my hands and knees. I couldn't walk. I had to go everywhere crawling on my hands and knees.
Wow.
Yeah, no, I mean, completely crazy. And I think I just put some random post on. Oh, that's right. No, I had to get one of these like three-wheeler frame things to move around that my father-in-law used to have, you know, and that was the only way I could move around, on my hands and knees or on this frame thing. And I'm like, this is bad. I don't know what to do about this, you know. And the pain was just horrendous, and I couldn't sleep. It was just horrible, really horrible. And I put a random post on Facebook. I can't remember why. And then suddenly my friend Donald Doherty, who commented on the thread you're talking about,
Right.
just messaged me back and went, yeah, I can help you with that. And to start with, I was like, dude, don't take the piss. Like, I don't need.
Yeah, because you're in.
I don't need a mantra. Okay, this hurts. The last thing I need is to go. You just need to go on. And
I don't need a
it'll all be good.
mantra.
I don't need that. I need that. Anyway, so I jumped on a call like this with Donald, and he tells me a little bit about this whole other world he's got, and I'm like, I didn't know you did any of this. Where does that come from? Yeah, you know, I thought I know you. I know nothing about you, right? So anyway, he said, are you up for doing a few bits of movement now? And I said, look, mate, this hurts so much. I don't care. I'll do anything, like whatever. But I think I'd still ruled out the tree and the om thing. But if there's something you can do and you know about the body and whatever, I'm up for it. So we did, you know, I mean, bless his heart, he probably spent about an hour with me over Skype, whatever. And suddenly I could move again.
What?
Like I could move in an hour to an hour and a half. And he sent me some exercises, and I was like, I need to know more about this. And that was kind of the beginning of the inquiry for me in the physical sense.
Yeah.
Like, I need to know more about that. And so I hired him, and we did some more, and I discovered, to my total blindsided horror, how weak, physically weak I'd become. And as soon as I started to realize, I realized that I couldn't even get up and out of a chair without using my arms.
Huh.
So I couldn't do that.
Right.
My hips and everything were so weak. For the benefit of the people listening to the audio, I just stood up out of a chair without using my arms. I couldn't do that, right? I couldn't sit on the toilet without pushing myself off the toilet with my arms, catapulting myself. I couldn't do any of that. But I'd missed all this. This is what really hit me, was like, shit, I'm blind to this. This is going on. I'm completely blind to the fact that when I think of fitness, I was thinking of it in terms of, like, can I run a marathon? Can I run a 10K? Or what's my weight? I'd completely missed the fact that from the point of view of strength and mobility, the key functions of, like, the body, I was nowhere. I probably had, you know, the body of somebody who was 80 or 90 years old. Seriously.
Very
like nowhere. And so I woke up into the reality of where my body was, having been in a dream of stories and whatever. But I didn't know I was in a dream, because you don't, do you? I mean, when you're asleep, you don't know you're asleep until you wake up.
Right.
That's the irony.
Yeah. 100%.
You know, when you're awake, you're like, oh shit, I was asleep. But when you're asleep, you're not lying there going, I'm asleep. Ah, I'm asleep. This is a dream. Yeah. You're in it fully, particularly if you're in the dream state. So I woke up out of this thing and started to realize that the reason I couldn't do so many things is literally because there was no muscular strength there. And that, I can't say I made that my top priority. It would look like that from the outside, but that would be unfair to report that. it became, the priority took hold of me, right? Prioritize your movement, prioritize your health. And like you, I started to get very helpful insights, because I'd been overweight and slim, fit and unfit on like a roller coaster for most of my adult life, for a long time. That's how it had played out for me. And all of a sudden, I got a sense that was going to end. That inverted commas, this time it was going to be different. And again, I can't honestly report and say, oh, I made this choice, I did this. This is just me recounting what occurred.
Right.
There was no choosing in there, but choice is what came through. So I've been doing this stuff with Donald, and then it occurred to me, like, mate, you're fat. Basically, you are just overweight and out of shape. And then this program popped up from a friend of mine, Graham Turner, and Julie Brown, friends of mine, called 14 in 4. Oh, interrupt me at any point, by the way, because I'll just keep talking. And and I looked at it and I was like, well, that looks interesting. I mean, I've done loads of programs and stuff in the past, really, really well-known ones as well, and got results for a while, but then back into this swingy pattern. Fat, thinner, fit, although I was never strong and flexible, but I was cardiovascularly fit, unfit, right? Into that swing, that boom-bust cycle.
Yeah.
The cycle of the ego, actually. That's the cycle of the ego, boom-bust. And
very interesting.
And so I reached out to these guys and I went, look, I'm interested. I need to do something. That's clear, whatever. And I got to talking with Graham. And I had two major insights at the time that were very helpful. And the first was that your diet is what you eat, not what you do. So I'd always been on diets. And I suddenly realized it was like, no, it's very straightforward. When you eat these foods, you're fat. When you eat these foods, you're slimmer.
Right.
Eat those foods and you'll be slimmer. I'm like, oh yeah. Now I know that sounds like I'm the thickest person on the planet, but I'm good with that. I can own my stupidity. Okay.
But it's just common sense, but you was blind to it still. Yeah.
Exactly. Because I was in a dream. That's it. You're seeing it, right? Because I was in a dream. And I woke up to the fact, like, oh, right, okay. So you eat slimmer foods and you stay slimmer. Oh, shit, like, no kidding, right? And so I knew from then on in, I would never diet again. It was just like, that's diet's done, right? I just need to eat and find the right foods and whatever. And I lost 9 3/4 pounds in the first week.
Which is how many kilos?
2.2 pounds to a kilo. So let's say 4 kilos.
Wow. In the first 2 weeks.
Right? Just by eating clean. Yeah. Was it enjoyable? No, of course not. Because I was driving sugar out my body, mostly driving caffeine out my body, driving alcohol out my body. So the first week to about 3 weeks were hideous. Yeah. They were horrible. Right? And then I started exercising with Graham. And I had the second really big insight, which was that I had, again, a dream about how exercise and stuff worked. So I would always start with cardio. Yeah, cardio's, oh no, this was the other part of the first insight, sorry. So diet is what you do. You stay slim in the kitchen, you get fit in the gym. But you don't get slim in the gym. That'll kill you.
Yeah.
Because the minute you run out of time, when you're busy or whatever, you'll just be fat again. And I'd always done that in the past. I'd always use exercise-based weight loss, right? So second insight was I'd always started with cardiovascular because that's part of how I got lighter. And Graham said, what do you do? And I said, well, I enjoy running. He said, you're not running. And I was like an angry child, Yeah. What do you mean I'm not running? He said, you're not strong enough to run. Forget it. That ain't happening. I'm banning you for running for months. I'm like, and I hated it. I like full-blown ego attack. Just, I don't like it. I don't like being told what to do, for one thing. So he said, you're weak, and you're weaker than even you think you are. Now you're awake to your weakness, and you're completely inflexible. Well, the inflexible bit I knew was true, because I'd figured out the whole chair thing and whatever. But the weakness, I had no idea muscularly how weak I was until I started to move. And it was so hard. It was so hard, because I was coming to terms with the reality of where I was moment by moment. And the sense of separate me, the ego, didn't like it at all. Until the day that I recounted on your post, when I was exercising one day and it was hurting. It was making me do push-ups and whatever, and it was hurting. And suddenly, in that moment, the disconnect between the experience of suffering and the sufferer vanished, and it just became experience again, which is what I heard you describing in what you saw quite recently and stuff. So that apparent separation between what's going on and the one who's struggling because of it vanished. And so whilst there was a sensation of discomfort, there was no one there to claim it and go, oh, this is so painful, this is the worst thing ever, I just need to stop. All that vanished. The drama went. That part of the ego dissolved. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. So all of a sudden, that pain was just what it was, you know. And I can't even report to you that it's sensations within the body, because I twigged something else at that time, which might come up later on. But I twigged that the pain wasn't, whilst it appeared to be occurring in the body, it wasn't really occurring in the body. I couldn't locate it. I could kind of go, yeah, it's sort of here, and point awkwardly to a joint, but I couldn't really locate the center of the pain. And then that dawned on me, oh my God, the pain isn't in the body, the pain is in awareness. That's where the pain is.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist in the body. It appears to, but actually if you try and locate it, you'll be pointing, and you'll blame the fact that you can't put your finger through your bones or your skin or some shit like that. But actually what you're pointing to is the fact you can't quite locate it, because that isn't where it lives. It's, and this could sound really crazy, but it's within experience. And so that whole separation between the experiencer and the experiencing started to close down. And with it, the pain started to dissipate, because there was no resistance anymore. Resistance only exists at the level of a separate self, a me who is resistant to experience. And what we're not seeing in that moment is that me is also part of experience. It's in the same plane as experience, but we're not seeing that clearly in the moment. And so that changed everything for me. Everything. Not just my health and fitness, but my work, even the work I'd been doing, like under the guise of the principles or whatever, it changed that completely, because I saw that the only barrier was that temporary sense of separation created by the veil of thought. Now, I'd always assumed that the start of the story started at like the body-mind connection. What I hadn't seen was that isn't the start of the story. The start of the story is consciousness, or some people call it awakeness or awareness. Like when you wake up in the morning, think about what wakes up. There's often parts of a second or even seconds where when you wake up, you don't even know you've got a body. But awakeness is awake. Consciousness is conscious to itself in that moment. And I was like, oh man, like I'm not even a body. I'm just addicted to the thought that I'm a body. That's a compelling, addictive thought, that I'm this body, this mind. Like, point to the mind. And people go, it points the head.
I know.
It's the head. And they go, no, it's in the brain. Where? Tell me a scientist who can point to where the mind is in the brain, but still people do it. Oh, it's in here. It's just my thinking. Where in there? No scientist on the planet can tell you where that is, because it isn't there.
Yeah.
It isn't. It's in awareness. And like, so you can see how big this was for me, right? It blew everything.
Oh, wow.
It blew everything. All the 3P stuff and the whole lot. And I'm not saying it's wrong, okay? I'm just recounting best I can. It blew the whole lot. I suddenly, in that instant, and I'm having to recount this through time. So this is a concession, right? This isn't really what happened. What happened is just what happens. It just is. It just is. So it blew the whole lot. Because I saw clear as day. I can report to you that I saw as clear as day that I could not be the body, despite the fact that it appeared differently.
Yeah.
But I could see clearly. I couldn't be. And I couldn't be the mind either. And so all of a sudden, all this stuff about, oh, it's my personal thinking. Well, that all just vanished. It's like, I don't have any. I don't have a mind. I don't have personal thinking, but I don't have a mind. It's rubbish. Compelling rubbish, but it's rubbish. It's a red herring. We don't want to pay any attention to it. And I could see as clear as day that what we were searching for in all of this, which is why the whole physical thing is such a gift, is to come home. Consciousness is looking to get back to itself. And that brings us right back to what you said about talking to yourself and why it felt so healing. And I can feel that energy around my body right now. And yes, I still call it my body. I don't, you know, like that's language, isn't it? It's how we talk to each other. Of course. You know, there's lots of Dave here still. There's less Dave than there was, but there's a lot of Daves. You know, physically, there's a lot less freaking Dave, I tell you. But there's still Daveness here. I'm not reporting that's vanished. I'm now a puff of smoke at all. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is, in that de-identification process, true freedom revealed itself to itself, and it's healing energy.
Yeah.
It's the healing energy of you know, of God, if you like, or of consciousness, or of life itself. Whatever frame works for someone, use it. Doesn't matter. The language isn't important. It's you know, look at where I'm pointing, not at how I'm trying to describe it.
Where the language comes from.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there, beautiful. Yeah, exactly that. Look at the origin of where language is able to language. Not at the words and go, well, I'm not quite so sure about that, Dave. That's not how I see it. No, I forget all that.
Yeah. That's just right. That's what would you call that little thing? And also, if you want to elaborate on that question I just asked, also a thing where you mentioned earlier about how the ego kind of tends to go in cycles. You know, that I feel like those questions kind of relate.
Yeah. Well, so let's look at that a little bit. Sure. So the ego, and we have to be careful with this, right? Because the way most people talk about ego, they'll talk about, you know, my ego, your ego, my separate self, your separate self. That's a big red herring. We don't want to look at that at all. Okay, there's ego, but not mine and yours. And there's a sense of separation, but not my separation and your separation. That just makes it far too complicated. There is a sense of separation, which we all share.
Oh my God. Yeah.
We all share, right? We're sharing it right now. There's a Morten over here, over there. There's a Dave here. But think how many times on this call, or even for people listening to this, right?
Oh my God. Yeah.
Right? They will have lost track of whether there's 2 of us on the call, 3 of us, 1 of us. You can't keep track because there's only one thing going on: consciousness. That's all that's going on, right? So there isn't a my ego, your ego. We don't want to pay any attention to that. There isn't a my thinking, your thinking. They're all red. They're blind corners. We don't want to get caught in. But there is this sense of separation, which is only a thin veil of thought, right? And if it lifts for somebody when they're listening to this, it might, who knows? they're gonna feel the biggest sense of expansive freedom they'll probably have ever felt in their life. As that veil of thought, the separation lifts, bam, you're back into where you were when you were young, right? Just like, whoa, that's it. It's just that. It's just this, all of this. The wetness of life, if you like. Some people describe it as. So the the ego is time bound. It's what makes it look like life starts and stops. Yeah, like we booked a time for our call. That's all the ego is. It's the ego only exists within time. Now, how many times on this call, without realizing, have you got no sense of how long we've been talking? I just glanced at my clock then, and I'm like, whoa, we've been talking for quite a while now.
Oh, really? Yeah, I have no idea.
Then? Did time stop? No, time only exists in the sense of separation. That's the only place it exists. Relativity. It's the same thing. It's all pointing at the same thing. But that isn't what's going on. That's what appears to be going on. That's the show that appears to be going on. So the boom bust cycles are the cycles of the ego, the hero's journey. And that's why I said slightly careful with the language. You know, it's lovely and romantic to report how I had my insights, right? Insight isn't content. Insight in truth is silence. But we've taken insight or wisdom to be personal. And so rather than looking at the silence, we look at the content that upgrades what we call life, the sense of a separate self. That's all that's happening. But insight is content free. Yeah. Insight isn't a personal thing. There's no such thing as a personal insight or personal wisdom. None of those exist either. Why? Because there's no person. There's no separate self. It just appears that way. It's an apparition created by the veil of thought. That's all it is. And Sidney Banks saw this as clear as day. But you know, he saw that. Like, the veil went.
Oh yeah.
And you see the isness. What is the isness of all things? But then mind appears to reform. Remember, it doesn't. It appears to reform, and we talk about our personal thinking coming back. Remember, it doesn't. All of those things are centric around a person or a character which doesn't exist. It's only thought thick.
This is great. And I lost you there in a good way. You know what I mean? Like in the last 20 seconds. What's that?
The great news. You lost you in a great way.
Yeah.
Like there was no me and there was no you. There was what was. And then we kind of come back in. We need a sense of, this is how I see it currently. We need a sense of identification because that's what fuels the whole show. Yeah, that's what makes it possible.
Wow, this is amazing. Like the thing you said about how separation also is, or in the ego, and I can't put words on it. Like that was very, very liberating.
Yeah, and we must have a sense that it's a sense of separation. That's all it is. Like literally via the senses. My senses are telling me that which I call me, that there's a Morten over there and we're having a fun dialogue and I can't wait to hear what people make of this. And like this is the first time you and I have ever spoken, right?
Yeah.
But it's like we've been buddies since we were 5 years old.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I'd have probably been 25 and you were 5, but whatever, you know.
Whatever.
That's the beauty of the eradication of time which resides in the ego, is it just transcends all this stuff that we believe. We've been hoodwinked into believing we have to wade through, to fix, to work at, to make better, to go deeper, to see more, blah, 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 blah. All that personal development tripe. But we've been led into, you know, innocently, right, by the ego, by the sense of separation. I need a sense of separation believes it's ever going to go deeper. Right? That's the only one who can report. I will go deeper. I see things differently now. Da 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 da. All that. It's a sense of separation, nothing more. We don't want to pay too much attention to it. We keep on this single track inquiry, and I'm going to have to go into separation to be able to talk about it. But the more that I've done that, then I've noticed that, like, my eating has changed beyond description. I'm fitter and stronger, I would guess, than I've ever been in my whole life. I'm tracking what I eat with my app, my MyFitnessPal, because I can really see that tracking those macros and whatever. And to somebody else, they'll go, "Oh, that makes no sense," or whatever. I'm just reporting what's happened here in the context of our conversation. That's all. I'm not saying it's this is what everybody else wants to go and do. And that's where the personal development industry, including spiritual teachings, are just up the creek, really. I can only report for you what's happening. But really, really, I'm only talking to myself anyway, because there's nothing else for me happening. So like it's probably crazy. All I'm doing in telling everybody or ranting, whatever, is I'm shouting at myself. How weird is that? There's nothing else going on. There's only one thing going on. It's just that from the perspective of a separate self, from a relativity, which is how we function, you know, a lot of the time, then it looks like there's something to do here. It looks like there's a conversation to be had. From the perspective of the absolute, the only thing that's going on, it's like, actually, there's nothing going on. There's not even two people having a conversation. There's nothing going on. It's just like, just is what it is. But there you go. However, back in relativity.
Yeah, and here's Tom with the weather. Yeah.
Yeah, we should so have a Morten and Dave show. It'd be good. Yeah. So yeah, those are some of the things that I started to see.
I remember one of the first workshops I arranged for Jamie in Oslo. After that, we did the first podcast episode, and I think on that hotel room we talked about how I kind of saw that it's not, because I was caught in the question of trying to understand thought, consciousness, and mind.
Sure.
Whoa, huge. What's it called? Torden, like in the sky.
Oh, like, lightning.
Like huge. Like yeah.
There you go.
Anyways, yeah, and at that moment I saw something. I saw a glimpse that it's just one paradigm. It's just one, like you're pointing to, oneness or one paradigm or just one thing happening.
Yeah, it's a single happening, and I think this is
conceptualized. That's also,
yeah,
you know.
And this, I think this is important when we're teaching, and you know, like when I'm teaching, then I'm I'm really pretty ruthless about closing down on the separate self and for you know, on the ego. And for the ego, that's very uncomfortable. It doesn't like it at all. It's like and I'm not talking about someone's ego. I'm just talking about the ego. So remember, I'm only closing down on myself.
Yeah.
But it would appear that I'm closing down on somebody who I'm working with or whatever. But it's so important, because otherwise, just what you're saying there, what happens is that we get a sense that this is a personal understanding where me, the person, the Dave, needs to develop its understanding. And it's like, and when I truly woke up, you know, like I said about waking up to how weak the body was.
Yeah.
Well, in terms of this work, what I woke up to was the fact that there is no Dave.
Right.
And poor old Dave, as much as he was desperately trying to wake up and watching more hours of Advaita videos a day than you can possibly, you know, imagine, poor old Dave was never going to wake up, because Dave was a figment of imagination. That's all Dave was. Dave is a character, or you could say the veil of thought within experience. So that's what I woke up to, was like, oh my God, like There's no Dave.
Wow.
No wonder poor old Dave can't get it. There isn't a Dave to get anything. Cosmic
And
joke, right?
the
No
most
Dave who's able to get it.
insane.
And that's the thing. So like, and it's a cosmic joke once you've seen it. But when you're in it, you're sitting in those seminar rooms like, I think I get what someone's talking about, and I think I see. I'm seeing it more. I'll book on another one, and then I'll see it. You ain't never gonna see it, right? Because there's no use to see it in the first place.
And you start trying to convince yourself and others that what you kind of mold this. You're trying to like mold this card house of truth that is, based on that inside the ego, inside the character, inside the
That's
personality.
Yeah, you see it. There's it. Yeah, exactly that. The ego loves it.
Yeah, it's like jerking off.
It's no, completely. From the ego's point of view, it's like, finally I get to be a good person, or a kind person, or a wise person, or a grounded person. Because that's the domain of the ego. Because who wants to admit that they're an asshole much of the time? Like the ego hates that idea. It's like, oh no, finally, anything with finally in it, finally, we've all had those thoughts in the back of our mind of like, I could have been better in this relationship, or I should have been kinder, or I'm a bit of an asshole here, there, and other. Now, to really see that was only ever what was totally allowable in the moment is a bastard for the ego. The ego hates it because the ego thrives on the idea it can be better. It solidifies that sense of separation and makes it real. Makes it more. Now, there's the irony with personal development, okay? It makes the sense of separation more real, which is more of a pain in the ass. Because I don't know about you, but when I feel separate from people, I tend not to be that nice.
Right.
Like it
Why
just
do you
like
think that is though? Like what is? I mean, it's a joke, it's irony and all that, but what's the meaning of the ego, of feeling like
it's just a. I don't think we want to pay too much attention to it, right? And here's why. Because it doesn't exist. It only thinks it exists. Yeah. So can you see how subtle it is? The ego comes back in and goes, "Oh, I wonder why I why I exist." It's just so, you're like, no, and we want to chop it at its root and go, "Hey, I just want to remind you, you ain't real.
Yeah,
you're an
apparition."
apparition.
That has to be. Then and I feel like when I was 5 years old, I knew that. I was walking around in life like, this is the Truman Show, like this is all just me, or not for me. That wasn't my maybe not the best words, but you know what I mean. I knew that when I was 5. I didn't even question it. It was just, this is all a comic book.
Yeah, exactly. And then and again, it's tricky, right? Because then what would happen in a training or a coaching session, and I've done this, right? I know it's come out of this mouth, is we then go into stories of conditioning and society. Remember, it only looks like that from the perception of something that is vapor. It doesn't exist. Only the sense of a separate, only the sense of a separate self believes in the separate self. Right? Only the sense of separation wants to do anything about that. Oh yeah, I'm probably going to be able to get over the ego. I mean, the reason I do the funny voices is to like accentuate it. I'm probably going to be able to get past my ego pretty soon. If I bang out enough mantras and go on the high level course, then it'll be fine. Be like, oh, good luck with that. It doesn't exist.
Let me sleep on it, or like.
Yeah. I need some time to reflect. It's like, good luck with that. So we don't want to fuel it by trying to understand how it occurs, because like it doesn't. Like you just said, when you're 5, you knew. Everybody knew. Yeah, and if people like it's really funny if I go for a coffee now, like the people I hang out with are mostly under 4 years of age. Yeah, because they're just like they just show you this. We went out for a meal as a family the other day, and there was a family sitting near to us, and there was a little one in the high chair, and I said hi to the parents on the way in because I do, and the little one turned and offered me her sandwich, and then offered me her dog, and her mum said, and they were the parents were great. There was lots of free-flowing banter over lunch, and mostly with me and the 4-year-old. And mum went, "But the dog's called Dave." I went, "Whoa, I'm called Dave." And she went, "Oh, don't tell her, that'll blow her head." And I'm like, "No, she knows already." She's got it. She's there. And you're right. It's beautiful. It's beautiful to see that. But we don't want to fuel this sense of separation, because otherwise now the sense of separation's really got something to stick its teeth into. Good person syndrome. Oh. And man, doesn't our ego love the idea of finally being a good person, a holy person, a spiritual person? All these things I've fallen in love with. A wise person. I'm not saying I'm rid of all of them. I'm arrogant, but not that arrogant. It's like, but you can just see it. You can see the trap.
Yeah.
That finally trap. Jeff Foster speaks about it beautifully. Finally, I'm the one who. Finally. Who is that one? Go back to the single inquiry. Who is the one who can claim, I want to be a better person? Who can claim that? Interrogate that. So and it's hilarious, right? Because it's funny now, because somebody else interviewed me last week about the kind of diet and transformation or whatever, and I'm like, I'd love to report to you that there's, that I'm working really and all that. I know that's what everybody wants to hear in the world of apparent separation, but I just can't report that. Like, I'm not trying to lose weight. I'm not even trying to get fit. It's just what's happening. It's a happening. That's all it is. And when we see that, and it's the paradox that's no paradox, right? When we see that, coincidentally or otherwise, what's happening is this body is getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And ironically, the root was kind of not being that bothered whether it was strong or weak or whatever. But even that doesn't sound right. Like it's just interesting to be able to observe.
Well, it's and you're vibing on a very high level right now with your words, because I think you're pointing hard, and I like it. I think
it is hard, and honestly, like, if you want to give the ego something to do, and it wants something to do, right? It's perpetual momentum. So it really wants something to do. Give it this inquiry.
Inquiry? What do you mean?
So this questioning, this or the who am I question.
Yeah.
Give it that. Because that's something. It's something it can really, and it's useful. It's actually beneficial.
Yeah.
It's of all the concessions, it's the and I spent time with people who are very, very clear, like very clear. And like you said there, you're being very straight and direct, but it's interesting. You then said, but I love it. Yeah. And it's like, and like people I spent time with are so straight and so direct. Yeah. Like there's probably, I don't know how much percentage of what I've said today, they would have gone, no, and just locked it down. Like, and what's weird is that the more that we do that, the more actually in touch with the dream, in a sense, I feel. So I feel more alive within the dream now than I ever have. Right. And I don't feel like I'm caught in it anywhere near as much. I do get caught in it, obviously, but I don't feel that that's something that needs to be tackled.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, that's what it is right now. Like, I'm really caught up, but it's not. And I just want to make this small distinction. It's not I'm caught up in my thinking. Look how many I's and my's are in that bloody sentence. Like, I'm not caught up in my personal thinking. Man, crazy. No, it's not that. It's just that there's less resistance. And again, you'll feel this because body seems to store resistance, is how it looks to me. Because body is resistance. Body is almost like the embodiment of ego, the sense of separate self. So that, yeah, that comes out, yeah? And you start to, like, even now, us chatting today, I'm feeling my shoulders. More and more and more and more and more. Whoa, I'm just knocking my water everywhere.
Yeah. Wow, body is, well, it makes sense. It makes sense because it's form. It's like it has to...
Whoa. It appears to be.
It appears to be form.
Yeah, but where, you know, again, where can you report the appearance of body? In consciousness, right? Because I'll bet for both of us and for anybody listening to this, if they've managed to make it this far, in which case, well done. Like so many times, they will have lost track of having a body.
Yeah. Yes. That's like, that's awesome. You just said that. Yeah.
Where did it go then?
Yeah.
Like, so it can't be there all the time. There's only awareness. There's only consciousness. That's all there is. And it just keeps shutting the door on, you know, on the gross, on the ego, on the sense of separation.
And concepts.
Yeah. And concepts and good ideas. Well meant, innocent, but good ideas.
Intentions. Yeah. And we spend all our human beings spend all our money and energy on trying to find something. Like, we're even trying to find consciousness and, you know, quantum physics or what have you, other species or yeah, it's fascinating. I asked the ego asked the question earlier why it's necessary, and it's just interesting how we're constantly searching and trying to figure out.
And it's truly innocent, obviously. Like, clearly, I mean, every sage over time has pointed out to the innocence of this. Like, even, and this is really big. You know, maybe this is too big for this recording. I don't know. You might even want to take this out. But even the notion that we're human beings, we want to question. Because I've never found another human being. Now I see that. Ever. Like, I cannot find a human being who's independent of me.
Right.
Ever.
Right. And I think we know this deep down. We know that
we do. And it's important because we spoke early on about realizing that we're not the body. So if we're not the body, then there can't be an other body either.
Right. And I personally, I haven't told you this, but I had, like, if a couple of years ago, I had psychotic tendencies, or you know what I mean? And if I were to go to a psychiatrist, I probably he would have told me that. And what happened is my story of what happened is that I both saw truth very deeply and misunderstood it very deeply. It was like very intense, very like strongly pulling in different directions. So I could see, understand, and actually see, like, very literal, that you are thoughts in me and you are my thing. You are not you. You're just me thinking you're you, or, you know what I mean? Like, stuff like that. I could see, all of my friends became just voices in my head, to put it in another way. So then I became crazy. if you know what I mean, because I didn't have
Completely.
I couldn't cope with it.
But we can look at that. I love what you said there, because there's like with a tiny dose of understanding, the challenge for you wasn't what you saw. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
The challenge for you was that you were still under the illusion that there was a me who could have all of that going on in its head.
Yes.
That's where the pressure was.
So I get stuck in my head.
Yeah, well, you think there's a me who's got a head. That's the problem.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And so you can see how innocently most stuff enforces the idea that there is a Morten who has a head, who can have an understanding or a misunderstanding that he now has to handle. And the moment we take one step in that direction and start, there's a body that's a me, that floodgate zooms open, and we're into overwhelm at such speed.
Yeah.
Incredible pace, because now there's the voices of the, and on the one hand it's a blessing. You could feel that, you could intuit that, but on the other hand, there's now a me who has to bear the burden of this new understanding. Now that's going to blow your head, except you haven't got one. actually, it won't. But attempting to be serious for at least half a second, you can see the innocence behind that and how it reinforces that sense of there is a me who needs to get better and be defended and be well. I mean, the whole idea of a well-being, how the heck would that ever happen? Or finding your innate well-being in you. In where? What are we pointing to? It'll be body. And then people go, oh yeah, but not the body. Well, what then? Just tell me what it, no, this defies words. No, it doesn't. That's the ego's escape route. Ego's just bolted for the door. I can't describe it. It's just beyond anything I can describe. I'll get off. No, it's simple. We can't describe shit when we don't understand it. And that's fine. There's no issue with it. I'm not saying I cannot sit here and go, I've got 100% I've got 100% understanding, blah, 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 blah. It's not that. That isn't the point. The point is stay with the inquiry. As far as I can tell, I'm sticking with this inquiry forever. Because I don't know about you, but my sense of personal whatever likes to run off with all sorts of stuff. So I just give it this to do.
What's inquiry? What do you mean?
Back to the question. Who am I? Who am I? Who am I? That's it. Single question. Who am I? Stay on it. The question all sages forever have pointed us to. Some people call it look within. Look within just doesn't, I can find too many escape holes in that, so I don't use it.
Right.
Who am I? I can't get away from that one. I can't get away from it. And time again, I fall into, you'll have heard it in my language and everything, I'll fall into believing, and it's a belief, that I'm a Dave who has a life to defend, must make his way in the world, blah, 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 blah. And you see, the moment you go into that, all that cacophony of stuff, and people go, no, isn't that your experience? That's the ego. The ego loves that defense line. I know, I've used it loads. But isn't that your experience? But you're denying your experience. You're bad. Blah, 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 blah. No. Shush. Back to the inquiry. The ego hates that. It really hates it. Doesn't like it. I hated it. I would not. Like, I bounced out of this because I wouldn't look at it. You are telling me I don't, this sense of solid being, which is slightly more muscular than it was, you're denying me experience. Did not like it. And then eventually, and not eventually, only eventually from the perspective of, the resistance, but now there's much less resistance to the resistance.
Right. That's what happens.
Now you could argue that, in a sense, as a concession, as an infinite well of being. That would be a softer and nicer way of looking at it, maybe. But you're not going to find your innate well-being. Good luck with that. It ain't happening. or that you're not broken. Go and find that you're not quite what you think you are. That would be more useful. Because that will burn off. Muji talks about it, white fire. That will burn off this apparent conditioning, but only from the sense of a separate self, remember. It's a concession. So there are concessions that we use when we're talking and whatever. I'll push stop recording.
Oh.
Okay, I've stopped recording.
Cool. How is you being? If you wanna listen to more of my conversations with people who have seen their true self, I guess, feel free to subscribe to my podcast. It's on iTunes. It's called the New Paradigm Podcast. And yeah, subscribe to this YouTube channel. Feel free to reach out to me. Have a blessed day.